Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin, where we talk about all things real estate related and also about living in Hayward. I'm Audrey Miller. I'm the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team. We're located right on Main Street in Hayward. Feel free to stop by sometime to say hello. I will warn you, I'm only in the office usually about 1 day a week. The rest of the time I work from my car and meeting with clients and all of that. So if you do want to meet me in person, maybe text or call me ahead of time to set that up, but you're free to stop by anytime and speak with myself or whichever agent is on duty that day. So today I'm going to provide you with a fourth quarter update on the real estate market in and around the Hayward area. We'll actually talk about the first 3 quarters of the year now that we're past September 30th and kind of give you a recap of the market trends, average sale prices, days on market, year over year, and all of that good stuff. So stay tuned to get updates on the market in the Hayward area. All right, so before we get started with the fourth quarter market update for you, again, I'm Audrey Miller. I am glad you joined me here on my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward. And if you like my channel, feel free to subscribe to see updates when new videos are posted. You can click on the notifications bell. You can reach out to me anytime via text, email, phone call, whatever works for you. If you're interested in buying or selling, feel free to reach out to me on that as well. I like to think of myself as a bit of a local real estate expert, but I'll let you judge that after you have contact with me. Oh, and also if you want to comment on my channel, I love hearing from viewers. I love getting feedback. If there's something you want me to talk about, if it's within the realm of my expertise, I will be happy to do that. Or if you just have comments or feedback in general, I would welcome that. So starting out today, I wanted to just set the stage for the general market conditions in the area. We're going to be focusing on the first 3 quarters of 2024 versus that same period of time in 2023. So kind of a year over year analysis. But as a full-time agent who works in and around the Hayward area, I cover about 45 minutes in any direction from Hayward. What I'm experiencing these days as both a listing agent and on the buyer side of things is that we are still in a seller's market. There are still more buyers than sellers, and places are still selling quickly. Multiple offers are still quite common, but not as common as they were a year and a half or 2 years ago. I believe the buyer pool is a little smaller than it was due to the higher interest rates. Some people don't want to trade a lower interest rate for a higher interest rate these days. Now, interest rates have come down just a little bit, and I think that's helpful. The stock market has remained strong, so we see more cash buyers now probably than we have before. Since the cost of borrowing money is a little bit more, people are choosing to use their cash to make purchases when maybe 2 years ago they would have borrowed at 3% or 2.8%. When the rates have gotten up to 6 and 7% as they have been, now dropping a little below 6 or right around 6 a lot of times most recently, but when they were 6 and 7% versus 2.5 to 3, we're seeing more people choosing to pay cash if they have that option. So all in all, still a seller's market, but what I notice is that the desirable properties that have the most people interested in them and that are appropriately priced for our current market, those are still selling within 3 to 5 to 7 days. If your property's been on the market for 2 weeks right now without much interest, it's either a property that is unique in the aspect of that there's not a lot of buyers interested in it, or the more likely thing is that it's overpriced. I think sellers have not completely adjusted to the market trends and the little bit of a shift in the market, and they're still trying to get what I will say is 2022 top dollar, sometimes even more than that, based on no real data, but just a hope and a prayer or a neighbor that sold their property for a certain price or whatever. So my strategy is always to price appropriately, to take into account all the data, market conditions, my intuition on what buyers are looking for, and you'll still end up getting the most money for your property and selling the quickest all at the same time by pricing appropriately. There's nothing like multiple offers to drive your price up if you're on the seller side. And if you're a buyer, you do have a little more time with some properties than you used to, but don't think that if you like a property, you can sit and think about it for a week or two. There's probably at least a 50% chance it's going to be under contract within that first week or, give or take a few days. However, the properties that, like I said, maybe have a little less competition are sitting a little longer. So, and I'll get to some of that data later, but overall, very, very healthy market here in terms of activity, things moving quickly. We're still in an unbalanced market, so we have more demand than supply, which I think will continue to keep prices steady-ish and I'll give you the data on that. Now, there have been more people doing new construction in the area, so that's a dynamic that's happening as there's been such a shortage of housing. And the people that have really suffered in our area, I feel, and this could be in other areas of the country as well, are those who live and work here and are trying to buy a family home or upsize or downsize, get into their first home. That's been really difficult with the price points that we're experiencing that have kind of stayed in that area of pricing plus the interest rate. So if interest rates were to fall, I think that may help out some of the local people more who are just trying to get into a family home or buy their first home or that kind of thing. All right, so now let's compare some year-over-year data from January through the end of September of 2023 versus January through the end of September 2024. And that is the time period that I'm comparing in the rest of this information in this video market update. So in Sawyer County, all properties, so this includes on water, off water, but residential only. Everything I'm talking about here is residential only. I really don't get into the commercial or vacant land properties unless I'm doing a video specifically on that. And I will say that of my business, probably 75% to 80% is residential. The rest of it is vacant land. I don't do much commercial. It's not my preference. I will sell commercial or help a buyer with commercial, and I have some accounting background to help with that, but that is not my preference, and it's a very, very small portion of what I do in my specific real estate practice. So this is residential only. The average sale price in 2023 was $429,000 across the entire county. In 2024, for that same time period, it's $398,000 something. So we actually have a decrease in price across Sawyer County of 9.2%. However, days on market for all the properties that did sell has remained almost entirely static. We are down one day, we're actually one day quicker in 2024 at 92 days on market. And keep in mind, like I always say, that's from the time the property is listed until it closes. So a good majority of that time frame of the 92 days, approximately 3 months, at least half of that or a little more is the closing process, if there's a financing involved especially. So 45 days average probably for time to go under contract, but then another 45 days till it closes. But just because the average is 45 days, that means some are taking 60, 90, 100 days, some are taking 3, 5, 7, 10 days. So keep in mind what I said earlier regarding the dynamics of the market currently in terms of whether you're a buyer or a seller and what to expect. And then the number of places that sold in Sawyer County this year is exactly the same year over year, which is kind of hard to believe that it's that coincidental, but it was 226 properties both years. So we have almost exactly the same number of sales. And then the average sale price versus list price remained almost static as well. It was 98% last year, 97.9 this year. However, that average sale price does not account for any initial price reduction. So when it factors that percentage, it's taking the amount the property was listed at the point of going under contract. So it's a little bit skewed. Let's say you list a house for $499,000. I put it on the market. We wait 3 weeks. We don't have a lot of interest. We lower it to $479,000. Once it's lowered to $479,000, somebody comes in with an offer and they offer $475,000. We go to closing, it sells. That's going to show that the list price was $479,000, sale price was $475,000. It does not take into account that initial price reduction. It only takes into account the price it was listed at when it went under contract. So when you see these really high numbers, there is price reductions happening, and they're happening more frequently because I think sellers are overshooting. Maybe the agents are overshooting the market, and so there's more price reductions happening. But once they get into that, what I call the sweet spot, they are selling for almost full asking price at that time. Okay, so now let's talk about lake properties only, because I was really curious to do an analysis of on water versus off water or lake versus other. For the purpose of this, I actually grouped the riverfront properties in with the non-waterfront. So I'm doing lake and flowage versus river and off water completely. I feel like riverfront properties are more similar to off water than they are to on water in terms of the number of people who want to pursue that type of property, whereas lake and flowage are definitely more competitive, more highly desirable by more people. So lakefront and flowage only. Year over year, the average days on market is exactly the same, 84 days. The total sold in 2023, there was 105 properties. In 2024, there was 93. So we actually have 12 less properties that were sold in 2024. And I feel like the lake properties have been least affected by any market shift. Again, they have to be priced appropriately. I'm not saying low, but not high. They need to be priced according to the comps. And the market is still strong enough that if you are a tiny bit on the low side, the market will take it where it needs to go. But pricing appropriately is something that an agent can help you with. My strategy is never to try to price low. My strategy is to price appropriately to get my seller the highest amount of money possible. possible in these current market conditions. My strategy might change a little bit, or I might recommend a different strategy depending on market conditions. But when you do this every day of the week, you know what works and what doesn't. And that's why having an experienced agent on your side through this process, whether buying or selling, is so invaluable. So the total sale price for lakefront property, kind of a surprise to me, it actually is down 8.6%. So we went from 632,000 average to 544,000 average in 2024 for a sale price. So we are down about 8.6% total. Now this, there's only about 100 comps to go off of. So this can be sometimes skewed just a little bit by depending how many really high-end properties sold, let's say like over the 2 million mark, because those are not very common. But still, it's an average, and I think it's worth taking into account when making decisions and kind of, acknowledging market trends that are happening. But the lakefront property market is very, very competitive, and things sell really quickly for the most part. There's so many people who love our lakes up here and want to be on our lakes. And then the percentage of list versus sale price, we're at 98.2 in 2023, 98.9 in 2024. So not much change on that front when it comes to the year-over-year information. And then let's talk about the off-water. Same information, I should say non-lakefront is what I need to call it. Non-lakefront, because riverfront is included. Average days on market are up 3. So we went from 95 to 98 days on market. The number of sales, we actually have 17 more sales off water, including riverfront. Sorry, I keep having to say that. So off water and riverfront, we have 17 more sales. So we went from 116 sales to 133. So I would say that's due to more new construction happening in the area. Otherwise, I don't know what else to account it to, but that's an interesting statistic. And here's probably the most interesting thing of the entire data that I collected, which is that our non-lakefront property average price has actually increased. Everything else has decreased a bit. This number has increased. So we actually went from 255 average sale price to 296, and the square footage stayed almost exactly the same. The average square foot for non-lakefront is about 1,675 square feet, and the average price is now 8.6% higher, which is very similar to what the lakefront property was lower. Again, if I had to guess, I would chalk this up to the new construction, as those average sale prices are a little bit higher per square foot. But I thought that was a very interesting thing to separate out the lakefront versus non-lakefront and see that information. I would have actually thought that lakefront would have increased and the other would have stayed steady. So this is why I do these analysis. It's really helpful. And then the percent of sale price is 98.1 last year versus 97.2% of list price this year. So that has stayed relatively static as well, along with all the other information. We see that remaining right around that 98% of list price mark on an ongoing basis. All right, then let's talk about what is on the market currently. And again, this is residential only. So we have in Sawyer County 133 current listings. Now, some of those are under contract, some of them are pending, which means that all contingencies have been cleared. So of the 133, 32% of them are under contract. And this is lakefront, non-lakefront, everything. So that means that you literally have about, 133 minus a third of those. So you've got somewhere around 90 properties or 80 properties to choose from all across the spectrum. So that is still really low inventory for our entire county. Sawyer County is a pretty big county, but 32% of those are under contract. I do feel like that number is less. It used to be in 2023, I would say we were more like 60% of the properties were under contract at any given time. So there is a little bit more to choose from at any given time. And the ones that are not under contract have been on the market for 78 days. So I think that's an interesting statistic compared to the average days on market for everything that has sold was between like 84 or 92. I think 92 was the number across the entire county for the year. So the properties that haven't sold have been on the market for an average of 78 days already. So as those get incorporated into the averages, obviously these properties bring up the average. So I think, again, it's just really important to understand your own property and to take the advice of an experienced agent to know where to price it. The longer they sit on the market, the more likely you're going to do price reductions and end up at a lower price than where you would have been if it had been priced appropriately. Now, sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we can be off a little bit one way or another, and it's maybe good to test the market at a certain price and then do small price reductions, but you got to be in the window, in my opinion, so you're not having to do large price reductions and make it look like you are, desperate to sell at that point. But this is always a discussion between myself and a seller. And from a buyer perspective, the longer something has been on the market, I would say the more chance that a seller may be motivated to sell it for less. Maybe not. Sometimes sellers are not very motivated. That's what, we can find out. But the chances are higher. Common sense says the longer it's been on the market, the less activity it has, the less people are looking at it, and the more chance that you can get a little bit more of a deal on those properties. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about Washburn County. Sawyer and Washburn are the two main counties I work in, but I do get into Southern Bayfield. Sometimes I get into Eastern Burnett County, once in a while into the the southern part of Douglas, not typically in Rusk. So those are the counties that I cover, but Sawyer is my primary and Washburn secondary. So I focused on Sawyer County. That's also where Hayward is located. And that's kind of the center of where I work from and where our office is located. But I did want to give some information on Washburn. I think Washburn tends to follow similar trends to Sawyer from what I've seen, but I just wanted to give a short recap of Washburn County. Part of Stone Lake is in Washburn County, which is definitely an area that I work in a lot. Then you've got Trigo and Minong. They're still primarily in Washburn County. Spooner, Birchwood, parts of Long Lake. So all of those areas would be part of Washburn County. So I thought I would just do a quick recap. So this is just for all properties in Washburn County. Last year in 2023, there were 165 properties that sold in Washburn. This year there's 176. So we have sold collectively 11 more properties in the year of 2024. So slightly more sales happening, maybe slightly more inventory available. Days on market has gone from 77 last year to 82 this year. So about 5 days more for time on market. That's not too significant, but a small increase. And then last year, prices were average of $379,000 in all of Washburn County for every residential property that sold through our MLS. And this year it is $341,000. So Washburn County has experienced a 9% decrease in overall sale price of every property that sold year over year. So that's very similar to Sawyer. I think Sawyer was 8.6, if I recall. So very similar trend in Washburn County. And then the percentage of list versus sale was 98.8 in 2023 and 98.5 in 2024. So relatively similar to everything else. Actually slightly higher average sale price in Washburn County for whatever reason. And then I want to mention what is available, the inventory situation in Washburn County right now. So there are 128 properties available, and that's pretty similar to Sawyer right now for all residential properties on and off water. And of those in Washburn, 26% are under contract. So a few less percentage wise. And the average days on market for all of the active or available Washburn County properties is 78 days. So that's very similar to Sawyer as well. So I know this is very data heavy, but I feel like it's important to give these updates. If you're considering selling, if you're considering buying, you can take this information, do with it what you would like. It might help to inform decisions that you're making. And I just try to do these once a quarter to kind of give people a feel for what is happening for those of us who have boots on the ground and are doing real estate every day and listening to buyers and sellers and all of the things that go into that, plus the data that I'm able to pull from our local MLS. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, share my channel, comment below, stop by the office. I had somebody stop in last week. It was such a nice surprise. They walked in and they said, "Hi, Audrey." And I was like, had a panic moment because I thought, am I supposed to know these folks from somewhere? I didn't recognize them. I meet a ton of people, but I was on the spot like, oh no. And then they said, "Hey, we watch your YouTube channel. We're from Ohio and we came up here to visit for the week. We've been coming here for 50 years. We love listening to you. We appreciate it." And that was such a cool experience to have them stop in and give me that feedback. I really appreciated it. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, feel free to reach out anytime. If you have any questions about the market, about living in Hayward, or if you're interested in buying or selling, I'll be happy to help.